G'day, welcome back to the channel. What was all that about? Well, it relates to the first of the frequently asked questions, or the comments, the frequent comments that I had on my recent videos. And I'm going to explain what it's about now. Because one of the questions I was asked quite often was, why not just rejoin Model Flying New Zealand? You get your wings back and then you'll be able to fly at the airfield again. Wouldn't that be the simplest solution? Well, not really, because as people know, I've been a member of Model Flying New Zealand for many years, and look, here are just some of my membership cards. With wings, with wings, with wings, with wings, with wings. So I've had my wings a long time. In fact, I had my wings before that, but there was another parting of the ways, about 10 years ago. And that means I've been tested for my wings on multiple occasions, tested and passed my wings certification on multiple occasions for fixed wing and rotary wing craft. So there's no doubt, there's absolutely no doubt that I have the necessary competence, I have the necessary knowledge, skills, and the right attitude to safety, or I would never have passed all those tests and I wouldn't have held those wings for all those years. So what is the problem? Why is it now that suddenly my wings are no longer valid and I have lost all my flying skills, I don't know any of the rules, and my attitude to safety is just unacceptable? Well, it's because I haven't paid $100. That's what it is. But that bit at the beginning of the video, how does that fit in? Well, why am I not a member of Model Flying New Zealand now? Let me explain the situation. I've already put videos up about this. You go hunt back through the channel, you'll find them. But earlier this year, I posted a video of me flying a tiny whoop around my house. FPV, no spotter, BV lost because it went round the corner of the house where you couldn't see it. And I got a phone call, or got contacted by the president of Model Flying New Zealand. He's a nice guy, great guy, I get on well with him. And also, just to make it very clear, I think Model Flying New Zealand does some really good work for its members. Not for the hobby, for its members. It's like most national model flying bodies. They are there to protect the interests of their members and to support their members. Unfortunately, these days, unlike previous years, not all of the hobby are members of these organisations. So there's far more people who fly drones and model aircraft outside of the national model flying body than as members of the national model flying body. That means that the focus of a national model flying body is often not the same as the focus of the hobby or those who want to protect the hobby. I'm here, I stand for the hobby. Model Flying New Zealand stands for Model Flying New Zealand members. But it's also, some of them are in the hobby, so there's a degree of protection of the hobby, but only really in so much as it amounts to looking after members' interests. But anyway, I flew a whoop around my house, it was a slightly bigger one than this, flew around my house, FPV, put a video up on YouTube, and I got a call from the president saying, you can't do that. I'm sorry, but you cannot do that. And I thought, hang on, I just did. I just proved you could do it. His point was that, in fact, it may say it on one of these cards. Let me see if I can find it on one of these cards. Yeah, here we go. Hopefully it'll focus. This will focus. But down the bottom there it says, what does it say? The holder agrees to abide by CAA and MFNZ rules. You can see it written fairly clearly there. I don't know, this Osmo 3 may not focus, but hopefully it does. Anyway, there it is. So by being a member of Model Flying New Zealand, you agree to abide by all the CAA regulations. And obviously flying FPV without a spotter, BV loss, around the corner of the house, it's a breach of civil aviation regulations. So I was breaching the agreement with Model Flying New Zealand. And therefore, this could not be allowed to continue. One of two things would have to happen. I'd have to stop flying my whoops around the house, or I would have to leave Model Flying New Zealand. And to clarify things even further, I have Parkinsons, as regular viewers know. That means that I have good days and bad days. Now, as this disease progresses, the bad days outnumber the good days. There's not as many days when I am not only feeling like flying and the weather is good, but I'm able to fly. When I'm having a bad day, like a jelly and an earthquake, my thumbs are so shaky I can't fly. Even if I can fly, I would get no pleasure from it. So my flying opportunities are getting fewer and fewer by the day, which means that when I do have a fine day and my hands are cooperating and I want to have a fly, I want to rush outside, grab my whoop, fly around the house, FPV, woohoo, great fun. I enjoy the hobby. I enjoy FPV, I enjoy flying my whoop, and I'm doing it totally safely. So I had to choose, do I still have the ability to enjoy that? And that's 70 to 80% of my flying is just flying around the house. Or do I say, okay, I can't do this anymore. I can only fly under Model Flying New Zealand rules, which means I'll be flying at the airfield with other people. But But this is the problem. Now, if I have a good day and everything's right, and I think, woo, I want to go flying, even if I've got my wings and I'm a member of Model Flying New Zealand, I can't just go out to the airfield and fly, because I would need an observer, a spotter, someone there with me. And I can't conjure these people up. I mean, I have a limited circle of friends, and quite often those people are doing other things. They might be working, they might be doing something else. So it's not as if I can say, hey, drop everything and come and spot for me. It doesn't work. So if I am going to rely solely on my wings, I will have very few flying opportunities. There are quite a few weekends. For example, I go out to the airfield and everyone's there. I don't fly at all because I'm just not able. I'm not in the right frame of mind. My body's not cooperating. I can't fly. Even if I wanted to, had an observer there, I couldn't fly. Had wings, couldn't fly. So that's why flying at home represents most of my flying, or most of my accessibility for the hobby. That's mostly what I can fly. So I had to make that choice, and so I chose not to renew my subscription to Model Fly New Zealand, to opt to enjoy 80% of the hobby instead of 20% of the hobby. I think it's a reasonable thing to do. But the thing that annoys me a little about this is that the CAA, I challenged the CAA on this before. In fact, I'll link a video up here where I flew this very Mobula 6 in my garden with FPV, no spotter, and I confessed to breaking the regulation. I said, I break the regulation, I'm breaking it. CAA, take me to court, prosecute me for this, because I believe this is totally safe. And I don't believe that a court would stand behind you saying that this is so unsafe, I should be fined or censured. Now, hundreds of my subscribers, on request, filed complaints with CAA saying, Mr. Simpson's broken your rules, what are you going to do? And CAA investigated. 3 months, put an investigator on the case, investigated every aspect of this. And despite the fact that I had a confession, I confessed in front of the camera, videoed my confession, gave video evidence of me actually breaking the rule, flying the quad and everything, the CAA came back and said, we're not going to prosecute you. Insufficient evidence. Now, we know that wasn't insufficient evidence, because a videoed confession, videoed evidence, me standing up saying, take me to court, it wasn't insufficient evidence. The CAA was basically being very pragmatic and very, very good. I applaud them for this. They were basically saying, we know this is a breach, technically a breach of the rules, but this is not a dangerous situation. There's no risk in this. Mr. Simpson's quad is no more than a choking hazard. It's not endangering aircraft. It's not endangering other people. It's not endangering anybody's property but his own. So we're going to let it slide. We're not going to take action. Now, I would have hoped that having set that precedent through that Model Flying New Zealand would have had a similar perspective and said, well, okay, you're doing that, but we know it's not dangerous. It's not a risk. Instead, they said, stop, you can't do it. Or if you want to do it, you have to fill out these forms, because we've got an arrangement with CAA. You can fly BV loss, but you've got to fill out forms and things. And you've got to put cones up and tape and make sure your gate's closed and have someone security making sure that no one can wander onto your property and be endangered by this wicked craft. I had a look. That's not the facts. I had a look. They've got a form. I looked at the form, and unfortunately the form had a mandatory field that said observer. Well, I don't have an observer, so I could not comply with the form. So even though they've got this arrangement, I could not comply with it. I would never be able to do it under the authorities that Model Flying New Zealand apparently have. So that was it. I had to make the choice. Now, that little intro, what I want to make very clear here is how ridiculous this rule is. As you saw in the intro, I can use a crossbow in my backyard. I can put a target up, stand on the other side of the property, fire it up with a crossbow. Totally legal in New Zealand. I don't have to get a permit or a license or permission from anybody. I don't have to put cones at the front of my property. I don't have to put tape around, signs warning people, or have a security guard to stop people coming in. I can just fire my crossbow across my property into a target. I can do the same with a bow and arrow. Again, totally legal. No license, no permits, nothing. Won't get into trouble. I can do it with an air pistol, with an air rifle, with a paintball gun. I can even throw knives on my own property. 100% legal, even though I would think that these things would pose a huge risk, a much greater risk to anyone that might wander onto my property unexpectedly. Any of those things could cause very, very serious injuries, maybe even death. Yet, I can do all those things legally, but I can't fly this, because apparently someone could come onto my property and be endangered by this. Forget about the knives and the guns and the bows. Nothing. This is the dangerous thing. This is what I mean. Absolutely ridiculous. There's no pragmatism in this. There's no common sense. And when rules are made without common sense, it's very hard to respect them. And when an organisation like Model Flying New Zealand makes a couple of statements, and as I say, I've got nothing against Model Flying New Zealand, but I think they need to readjust their perspectives, because what they're telling us is, Mr. Simpson, you got your wings. Look at all this. You had them for years. You've never put anybody's property or life in danger. You've never killed anybody, injured anybody. You've got, here's the proof that you know what you're doing, but you didn't pay us $100. So goodbye. These count for nothing. Now, if these are really a test of competence, of knowledge, and of attitude, what difference does paying $100 make? So if you're saying these are contingent on paying us $100, this isn't a test of anything other than your ability to pay $100 a year. So again, it's very difficult to have respect for something where safety has a price. And in fact, by paying money, you're assumed to be, or you're claimed to be safer. I don't pay my $100. I'm far too unsafe to fly at or within 4 kilometres of an airfield. In fact, now, according to the local council, I'm even too unsafe to fly when supervised by somebody who has their wings. Yeah, so that's why I'm not rejoining Model Flying New Zealand. I would lose access to 80% of my flying, because 80% of my flying is around the house. FPV, no visual observer, BV loss. But nobody's dying. Nobody's getting hurt. The only property that could possibly be damaged is my own, and I accept that level of risk. So I don't know what you think, but it worries me. It really worries me when organisations say, pay us money and you're safe. Money buys privilege. This is a perfect example of it. If wings are truly a test of competence, knowledge, and attitude, then money should never come into it. Should never be a factor. But the fact that they're contingent on on an annual payment devalues them as a certification of any kind. Anyway, as I say, right. The next question: why not just get wings? Well, I think I've just shown I have wings. As I say, I've sat the test multiple times, passed every time, held them for years. To get wings, I'd have to rejoin Model Flying New Zealand, and I can't rejoin Model Flying New Zealand for the reasons I've just stated. So that answers that question as well. Next question: why not just fly elsewhere? This sounds like a pretty reasonable idea, but when you look at it more closely, the problem is I live in an area which is it's a bit of a basin. It's a flat area surrounded by hills and forestry and all sorts of things. So all of the areas reasonably accessible to me are within 4 kilometres of the airfield at which I usually fly. And that means I would still need wings to fly legally. And under the regulations, the local council could stop me flying by not giving their permission. According to the New Zealand Civil Aviation regulations, if you're flying within 4 kilometres of an airfield, you must have wings and you must have an arrangement, that is to say, the permission of the airfield operator. Do you think the council is going to give me permission based on their attitude to date? I don't think so. And again, I call into question this whole thing. Now, if I found a nice little grassy patch 3.9 kilometres away from our airfield, I still couldn't fly there without wings and without permission. Why? Now, our airfield is not an airport. There's no commercial operation. There's no regular passenger flights. There's no 737s or A320s landing there. We're talking about the very, very occasional Cessna 172, maybe a microlight. So what difference would it make if I was flying a model aircraft up to 400 feet, 3.9 kilometres from that airfield? Should any manned aircraft, be it departing or approaching the airfield, be as low as 400 feet, 3.9 kilometres from the airfield? I don't think they should. In fact, they certainly shouldn't. So why can't I fly a model air without these certifications that I've proven I have, but because I haven't paid my money, they're no longer effective? That's one of the problems with trying. There's nowhere else around here. The other thing is I have a workshop on the airfield. I've paid good money for a workshop on the airfield. Why should I have to then up and move over 4 kilometres away, where there's no mains power, there's no restroom, there's none of the facilities that I have at the airfield, while others continue to fly at the airfield? Why should I have to go 5, 6, 7 kilometres away to fly? It's not really practical. And then people ask, why not just fly anyway? Go down the airfield and fly, to hell with them all. Well, unfortunately, that's not an option either, because the council owns the airfield. I believe it's a community asset. The council manages or mismanages, but no, they say we own the airfield. We own it, and therefore we are the boss. And you can guarantee that if I went down there and flew, just when they tell me I can't, they would just trespass me from their property. Yep, I pay rates and I pay a lease and everything, but they would trespass me. I'd have no access to my workshop, no access to my models, no access to my tools. They would just trespass me. It's happened elsewhere in this country before. Just up the road in a place called Matamata, Waharoa, a guy with a hangar there and a microlight got offside with the council and they trespassed him from his own hangar. Couldn't access his aeroplane. They did it. That's what councils do. It's not about what's right. It's about how can we piss you off. So I would not hesitate to suggest that they would just trespass me if I did that. So that's not an option, is it? Now, the next question is a good one. Why not run for council? Why don't you fix things? You know, become a councillor and fix things from the inside. Well, unfortunately, people have tried. People have tried in the past. There's been a number of really good people go into council with the loftiest of goals and plans to change things, and they have just been beaten down, marginalised, demoralised. Their life has been a misery, because when you're one lone voice in a sea of whatever it is they've got in that council, you can't make a change. You can't make any difference. And in fact, from the inside, you can do even less, because you're governed by the rules and the codes of conduct, which prohibit you from doing things that you could do from the outside. So there's no point in me running for council. I could not make any change, and I would not want to submit myself to the level of persecution. I'm getting persecuted enough. I don't want to be persecuted even more by being in there and being the only person who has the goal of doing the best for the community rather than doing the best for myself and exploring my own personal agendas against the people I don't like. It's not for me. Certainly not for me. So yeah, those are the FAQs. I hope that has answered some of the questions. And just for the record, it is now well over 24 hours since I posted my last video, and not a peep from the council. I haven't heard from anybody who has emailed them that's got a reply either. They've still got the drawbridge up, the windows are still closed, shields raised. So I can only implore anyone who has seen that video, watch it up there if you haven't seen it, and hasn't emailed the council, then please, if you could do that, I'd be very grateful. Don't just email one councillor. Email the mayor and CC all the councillors, and then go online, use the form, and contact the executive and ask what the hell's going on. Why are you ignoring not only Mr. Simpson, but all the people who have emailed you requesting some information? Why are you remaining silent? Ask them. I honestly don't think you'll get a response. This is that, as I said, that siege mentality. It's in full force right now. But until we try, we do not know. And if this doesn't produce a response, we take it another level higher, because it's unacceptable, totally unacceptable. These people are paid a very generous stipend to do a job. And at the moment, they're just sitting there with their feet up watching Netflix. I don't think that's good enough. You tell me what you think in the comments down there. And what do you think of these ridiculous regulations? What do you think of the fact that I can throw knives, shoot guns, bows, all sorts of stuff in my backyard, but I can't fly this without breaking the law? Does that not prove that drones are over-regulated to the extreme? And the problem is, if we do not keep pushing back, it's only going to get worse. It's only going to get worse. I tell you, 10 years ago, if you had suggested to someone that, in the USA, for example, buying a child a 250-gram small radio-controlled model of a Piper Cub would result in them having to register with the government and fit a tracking device, because that's what we're up to now, and it's only going to get worse. This is lunacy. This must stop. But unless we all push back, it won't stop. It'll get worse and worse until the hobby is just history. So this is an opportunity for you, no matter where you are in the world, to start pushing back. Contact the council through the video I put up there and tell them that they need to do something. Stop sitting around watching Netflix. Get a response to Mr. Simpson. Deal with this issue. And as I've said so many times, I continue to offer them the opportunity to sit in a room for half an hour and resolve this thing quickly and effectively. But they choose to ignore everything that I suggest. Business as usual at the council. There you go. Thank you for watching. Bye for now.